I'm a 33-year-old office worker, and my husband, Tony, is 5 years my senior. We've been married for 7 years, but currently, due to certain circumstances, I live with my mother. You might be wondering how I ended up in this situation. Let's rewind a few years. Tony and I decided to build a house together. However, at that time, Tony had just changed jobs, and our savings were slim. His previous job had been at a major corporation, but he faced insidious harassment from his boss, which took a toll on his mental health. After struggling with sleepless nights, he eventually found himself unable to continue working. Tony sought help from a psychiatrist and took a leave of absence for about 3 months. Despite his efforts, he couldn't bounce back, leading to his resignation. With only my salary to rely on, we managed to get by, but it was a challenging time. After 2 months of being unemployed, Tony started to regain his energy. He began taking care of himself again, and his psychiatrist was pleased with his progress. Seeing him back to his positive self was a relief. He embarked on a vigorous job search, but his resignation due to mental health issues made finding a new job difficult. Eventually, he found a position at a small company, albeit with a lower salary than before. His enthusiasm for the job was infectious, and I couldn't help but feel happy seeing him excited about his work again. It wasn't easy, but at least he was doing what he loved. We had once dreamed of starting a family, but with the uncertainty of our finances, we reluctantly put that plan on hold. Besides, I also cherished my job, and quitting wasn't an option. Just when we thought things were stabilizing, a new challenge emerged. My mother, Karen, was paralyzed in a traffic accident and had to rely on a wheelchair. With my father gone since my middle school years, she had been living alone in our old family home, which was far from wheelchair-friendly. Tony surprised us all by suggesting that we live together to support my mother. It was unexpected but characteristic of his kindness. Despite the uncertainty surrounding his new job, we decided to take the leap and apply for a mortgage. Securing the loan wasn't easy, given the short duration of Tony's current employment, but we refused to give up. With determination and resilience as our driving forces, we approached multiple mortgage companies until we finally found one willing to work with us. With the loan approved, we were ecstatic to finally buy our own home, where we could support my mother and build a new chapter of our lives together. I had always envisioned living in a home permeated with the comforting scent of wood, adorned with thick exposed beams on the ceiling, and boasting customized storage spaces tailored specifically for us. A kitchen adapted to my shorter stature and spacious flooring crafted from cypress completed the picture. Naturally, it had to be a barrier-free single-story house, ideal for easy wheelchair living. The anticipation of its completion filled us with excitement, prompting daily visits to the construction site. Finally, our meticulously designed dream home stood before us. Its ample yard provided a perfect spot for my mother, who had become hesitant to venture outdoors, to bask in the sunlight. Yet, amid our joy, there lingered a sense of dissatisfaction. The land upon which our dream home sat was a gift from Tony's beloved grandfather. Though not affluent, his grandfather held a special fondness for Tony. However, his sudden cancer diagnosis prompted him to distribute his assets, with Tony receiving the largest plot of land as per his grandfather's wishes. It felt like winning the lottery, but there was a significant caveat. The plot was merely a 5-minute stroll from Tony's family home. When we informed them of my mother's plan to move in with us, Tony's sister scoffed, deriding the idea as shameless and attributing trouble to my presence as a supposed outsider. Tony's mother echoed this sentiment, insinuating that caring for the elderly was burdensome and casting aspersions on me as if I were some sort of curse. In the face of their hurtful remarks, Tony staunchly defended my mother and me, asserting that his grandfather's gift should be cause for celebration, not contention. Despite his efforts, it became apparent that Tony's mother and sister harbored a level of malice that bordered on world class. It's truly remarkable that someone as kind-hearted as Tony could emerge from such a family dynamic. To me, he's akin to a beautiful lotus flower, flourishing amidst the murky waters. Tony often remarked about his family, citing them as prime examples of what he didn't want to emulate at home. I suspect Tony's grandfather bestowed upon us this land with the hope that we would care for his mother in her later years. Despite having other properties, he allocated Tony's sister a parking lot situated a mere 10 minutes walk from their family residence. While smaller in size compared to our portion, it already had a lucrative parking contract, offering substantial monthly income. Personally, I might have preferred this arrangement, but receiving any gift is indeed something to be grateful for. Thanks to my grandfather-in-law's generosity, we were able to construct our home without bearing the burden of land costs, significantly easing the financial strain. However, once construction was complete, we extended invitations to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's family. During the building process, we learned that they had made unsanctioned visits to the site on multiple occasions. Their disregard for our privacy was unsettling. On the day of their visit, they arrived an hour and a half later than agreed upon, offering no apology. Their sense of entitlement was palpable as they casually asserted their ownership over the house, likening it to their grandfather's property. Despite the muddy conditions outside, my sister-in-law and her husband traipsed through our pristine home without so much as a second thought, ignoring the slippers we had provided. When I suggested offering slippers for their comfort, my sister-in-law simply chuckled, dismissing the idea as unnecessary. "It's such a hassle," she remarked casually. "You can just wipe the floor." From the outset, the atmosphere was tense, and predictably, they arrived empty-handed. After touring the rooms, they eventually reached my mother's quarters, which boasted ample space and abundant sunlight. At my mother's request, we had designed it akin to a duplex, complete with its own kitchen, a room truly resembling a second living area. Upon seeing it, my mother-in-law declared, "I'm fine with this room. I want to live here." It was a presumptuous statement, to say the least. Then came the final straw. My mother-in-law remarked to my mother, "You were fortunate to have that accident, weren't you? Thanks to being paraplegic, you've moved from that old shack to such a nice house. Isn't it a turn of fortune?" My mother remained silent, her expression betraying her inner sadness. Internally seething, I was on the brink of erupting in anger, but before I could speak, Tony intervened. In a firm tone, he confronted them, questioning their humanity and expressing his disgust at their callous remarks. He demanded an apology, unwilling to tolerate their insensitivity. Instead of remorse, they responded with defensiveness. My sister-in-law accused Tony of being high and mighty, while my mother-in-law attributed Tony's supposed misfortunes to our marriage. But Tony refused to back down, vehemently defending my mother and our family. Frustrated by Tony's unwavering stance, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law eventually left, shooting me a contemptuous glance. My mother, witnessing the confrontation, offered Tony a heartfelt apology, acknowledging the pain their words had caused. In the aftermath, amidst the lingering tension, my mother extended her own apology to Tony. "I'm sorry," she said, a glimmer of remorse evident in her eyes. "I must have upset your mother and sister. I'm sorry I dampened the mood on the day of the housewarming party." Tony, however, insisted that the blame rested on him. "It's embarrassing," he said. "They really lack decency. But I'm truly sorry. I'm happy to be living with you. Please understand that." As my mother began to tear up, I reassured her. Our new home was close to Tony's parents' house, surrounded by neighbors who had known Tony since childhood. Their kindness towards us eased the transition into our new life. 4 months had passed since that incident, and we were starting to settle into our new routine. My mother's smiles were becoming more frequent. Then one day, I received a call from home while I was at work. Such calls were rare, and a sense of foreboding gripped me. My fears were realized when my mother, unable to conceal her distress, informed me that Tony had collapsed at work. Panic surged through me as I quickly made arrangements to leave for the hospital. During the journey, I tried to remain calm, conjuring up positive scenarios in my mind. But upon reaching the hospital, the sight that greeted me shattered all semblance of composure. My husband, who had left for work that morning in high spirits, was now lying unconscious, hooked up to countless tubes. I was overwhelmed, lost in a sea of disbelief and fear. The doctor's grim prognosis only intensified the sense of despair. "He's in a very dangerous condition," they said. "Even if he survives, we don't know if he will regain consciousness." I felt like I was in a movie, unable even to cry. I prayed fervently, but my prayers went unanswered. My husband Tony passed away just like that. In my state of shock, my mother and sister-in-law showed up as expected. Upon hearing of Tony's passing, my sister-in-law accused me aggressively. "Did you poison him or something? Were you after his life insurance money?" My mother-in-law joined in, cornering me with her harsh words. "Bad things always happen when you're around. Just like your mother, you really are a jinx." I was too devastated to respond. At that moment, my mother arrived in a caregiver's taxi, tears streaming down her face at the loss of Tony. Seeing her cry finally broke through my shock, and I began to sob as well. As we cried together, my mother-in-law sneered, "Oh, stop it. Can't you quit the fake crying? My son changed after meeting you. Now that he's gone, I don't want to see your faces ever again. They'll appear before us again." With that, she left the hospital. A funeral director soon arrived to help us arrange the funeral. Tony's cause of death was a subarachnoid hemorrhage. It was unimaginable. He had been perfectly fine that morning. When I informed my mother-in-law about the funeral schedule, she responded coldly, "He's always sided with you too, so I won't attend the funeral. My daughter won't come either." True to her word, neither she nor my sister-in-law and her husband attended the viewing. Despite their absence, many of Tony's colleagues and friends came to pay their respects. Their presence was a testament to the love and respect Tony had earned. The turnout at the funeral was similarly large, and I could see that Tony was deeply missed. Surrounded by people who genuinely mourned my husband, I felt a sense of solace amidst my grief. Spending the day with those who sincerely missed Tony reminded me of the positive impact he had on so many lives. After Tony's death, I received an email from my mother-in-law, but its content was so inappropriate that I chose not to respond. She was asking about the amount of life insurance money and continued to email me when I didn't reply, eventually claiming she had a right to receive it. I couldn't handle this on top of everything else, so I ignored her messages. When my mother and I arrived home, we noticed the light was on inside. "That's strange," my mother Karen said, puzzled. "I thought we turned off all the lights." "Maybe I forgot to turn it off because I was too agitated," I replied, trying to reassure her. "It's only natural to be upset given the situation." As I unlocked the door, we could hear the sound of a TV coming from inside, which was definitely odd. My mom and I exchanged worried glances and cautiously entered the house. To our shock, we found my sister-in-law and her husband sitting in the living room, surrounded by unfamiliar furniture and boxes. "What are you doing here?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Without missing a beat, my sister-in-law retorted, "Why did you just barge in here?" "Well, it's your first time, so I'll let you off the hook. We're taking this house. We sold your stuff, so leave." My mother and I were utterly stunned, having no idea what was happening. "Where did our furniture and belongings go?" I asked. She nonchalantly replied, "We had a resale company come today and they took everything. You had some pretty good furniture. We got a good price for it. We bought this new furniture with that money. Who wants furniture that a dead person used? It's bad luck, isn't it? I'm the type to care about such things. Your stuff is packed in these boxes. I don't know if you're minimalist or just poor, but it was a relief that you had so few things." The furniture was carefully chosen by my husband, and I couldn't forgive them for this. My mom was also furious, her face turning beet red, but she was too shocked to respond. I immediately called the resale company. After explaining the situation, they agreed to treat the items as stolen and promised to return them. Honestly, with my husband gone, I want nothing to do with his family, but I do feel a strong desire to stay in the house filled with memories of him. As I grappled with these conflicting emotions, my mother leaned in and whispered to me, "What do you think Tony would say if he were here now?" "Maybe he'd say we should leave." "I'm sure that's true. Tony always used to say, it's worth spending time with people who understand you. But there are also people who just won't get it, no matter how much you explain. It's a waste of time dealing with those low-level aliens." He was, in fact, talking about his mother and sister. I can see it clearly now. If we continue to live here, his family and relatives will keep interfering. So, impulsively, I signed a lease on an accessible apartment. My mother was taken aback by my decisiveness. I asked the resale company to keep the furniture for a few days, and 3 days later, we moved it to the new apartment. In exchange for moving out, I made my mother-in-law and sister-in-law promise to cut ties with us. And so, a new life began with just my mother and me in the apartment. Tony had so many life insurance policies, it was almost obsessive. He often joked, always with a smile, "When I die, you guys will be rich." True to his word, my husband left my mother and me enough money to be comfortable for the rest of our lives. Tony was unable to secure a mortgage when we bought the house, so as an employee at a major corporation, I purchased the house under my name. I ensured that even if something happened to Tony first, I wouldn't be stuck paying a mortgage for a house I wouldn't live in. According to the original contract, The house would be auctioned off if the mortgage wasn't paid for 3 months. In the hustle and bustle of life, 3 months passed in a flash. Then, I received a barrage of calls from my sister-in-law, Jessica, filled with astounding fury. My call history was flooded with calls from Jessica and my mother-in-law, Linda. What the heck? This is seriously scary, I thought. It felt like something out of a horror movie. Since they were being incredibly persistent, I picked up the phone and found out they were furious that the house was being sold. Apparently, when they returned home, they were unable to get in and found a seizure notice. Jessica and her husband had moved out of the apartment they had been living in since Tony passed away, and Jessica had also quit her job. I suggested they move back into their parents' house as they were panicking about suddenly being homeless. To my surprise, Linda had become so involved in gambling that she couldn't keep up and had sold her own house. It seems they have been living together for the past 2 months. From what I hear, they even sold their primary source of income, a parking lot in front of the train station, a long time ago. Now, Linda and Jessica's family are completely homeless. When Linda said, "I'm sorry for everything, let's get along. Can you lend me some money, please?" I replied, "I think it's best if you stay away since I'm a jinx. We're strangers now that we've severed ties." Linda fell silent, mumbling a weak In my mind, I was laughing, thinking, who's the real bad luck charm here? When I said, "I won't lend you a single cent," Jessica, who had been listening to the conversation, shouted, "You devil. Bring us the money right now." "I am a devil and bad luck, so I'm going to hang up now," I replied and ended the call. In truth, I had involved the lawyer for the past 3 months, pushing for the auction of the house. I thought it was an unusual case, but apparently it's not that uncommon. The house was sold without any major trouble, allowing our family a moment of respite. We plan to find a new home with the money Tony left us. Since it's just my mother and me, we don't need a big house. We prioritize security as 2 women living together. So, I chose a condominium with minimal noise disturbance. I remember something my husband always said when we built our home. People can get energy from the sun, so let's create a place where your mother can enjoy her hobby of reading in the garden without feeling self-conscious. With those words, he had made a spacious courtyard for her. So, I looked for a condo with a large balcony where she could enjoy her coffee and read. It's smaller than our previous home, but the room is spacious enough to house the furniture my husband proudly chose. The piece of land that was gifted to us by Tony's grandfather was expansive, and the house sold for more than expected. With that money, I bought a rather luxurious condominium. The security is top-notch, so my worrywart husband would surely rest easy. I heard rumors about my in-laws' family. Our old neighbors were worried about my sister-in-law's family suddenly moving in. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law's family were left homeless. They even tried to borrow money from neighbors. In the end, they couldn't borrow anything and ended up living in public housing after consulting with the community. But they're stubborn people, so it seems the trouble never ends. From what I've heard, they caused a commotion by having a barbecue on their small balcony. Their thoughtless actions must have shocked the locals. Whether due to a lack of money or just frustration, they seem to have loud arguments every night. People say they're causing such a racket that it sounds like things are being thrown around. My sister-in-law's husband left a long time ago, and now it's just her and Linda living together. It's quite the contrast to my peaceful life with my mother. Although we're both 2-member households, it seems that the neighbors are banding together to try to get this nuisance family evicted. No matter where you go, if you're a nuisance, people won't welcome you. What goes around comes around. I just want to live peacefully and quietly, estranged from my embarrassing family. I believe that Tony is surely watching over us. From now on, I plan to live my life without causing trouble to others and do my best to live not just for myself, but for Tony as well.
I am Christina, and I am 32 years old. Steve and I have been together for 6 years, and I love him very much. I wanted to marry him my whole life and asked him to marry me several times, but each time he politely said no. But he finally agreed to my 5th request not long ago. Right now, we're busy getting ready for our wedding by making plans and picking out clothes. But even with all of this work, every day is fun, and I hum songs without even realizing it. Then one day, while I was happy, a prenuptial agreement was put in front of me. Steve had said that this agreement was needed in order to get married. What was agreed upon was that what belonged to each of us before we got married would stay the same. We would not mess with what the other person gets in the future, and we would update this document if our family situation changed. Steve, are you really worried about this? I asked him as he signed the paper. Well, it's just for peace of mind, just in case, he said. It's important for both of us, I believe. But I was more excited about the days ahead with him than I was about why he was so set on this deal. But a small event was about to happen. Steve has 2 older brothers who are a bit strange. Steve told me not to believe what those 2 said when I met them before our wedding. They're a bit odd. Don't worry about it. In his words, the people who will be my in-laws gave a small, unclear smile. I almost forgot about them because I hadn't seen them in a while. Then one day, while Steve was at work, I got a call from a number I didn't know. Chrissy, you like fish, right? This call from my brother-in-law, whom I had only met once, caught me off guard. What is this? I knew that Chrissy was my nickname, but who was it? I knew it wasn't a stranger because they called our home phone. It was a voice on the other end of the line that made me think of what it was. Haha, you don't know who I am. I'm Steve's brother and your new older brother. What kind of brother-in-law? What is it? Steve has 2 brothers, but this voice belonged to someone else. It has been a while. What took place? Asked but was still not sure what to do. He told her, today I went fishing and caught a lot of salmon. It's okay for me to bring a few, but I can't bring them all. Steve will love them with lemon. It made my heart beat faster when he spoke. That's great news. I could make a dish that Steve loves. Steve has to work today, but I think he'll be very pleased if he comes home to a tasty meal. I quickly went to the kitchen after hanging up the phone. I have salt and lemon. Right then, let's make a tasty dish. I was feeling great as I was getting the ingredients ready when the doorbell rang. My brother-in-law must be there, she said. I knew the face when I looked at the computer. Someone from Steve's family showed up. It was his younger brother. He looked a little tense when I opened the door. Excuse me, may I use the bathroom? Could you also pay for the taxi? As he said this, he ran into the house quickly. Huh, okay, I said as I gave the cab driver my money. He felt better when he got out of the bathroom and took a deep breath. Thanks, you saved me. Oh, and could you lend me some money too? He smiled and put out his hand. Huh, what is the money for? I looked at him a little confused, and he laughed. The fish is not free. How about $50? He asked in a relaxed way. What? I was so shocked that I almost dropped my wallet when I let out a loud scream. I thought the fish was just a treat for everyone. Of course, I felt bad taking it for free, and I had planned to buy him a snack to say thanks. But $50, that was a surprise. From the look on my brother-in-law's face, it looked like this price was normal for him. He'd arrived from a long way away to give it to me. The fish was still fresh. I didn't want to say anything that would make things worse. It hurt me a little to do it, but I took $50 out of my pocket and gave it to him. Thanks, the fish is in the fridge. Also, I'm leaving the fishing tools here. Steve has been asked to bring it home later. Thank you. After that, he quickly left. Huh, are you already leaving? Kevin, wait. I was shocked to see the cooler and gear left at the door. But he was gone in an instant, waving a $50 bill. It's odd that the stuff was left here. It won't fit here. I forgot to pay for the cab. I thought about the cab fare I had paid for him, and it looked like I was having a hard time. It feels weird to ask Steve to carry this. How do I bring up the cab fare? What was even more surprising was what was in the cooler. After I calmed down, I planned to make a dish. I said, "What?" When I opened it, "What is this?" There was only one small fish on top of a lot of ice. I couldn't move because I was so shocked. What is this, then? I had no words to describe how shocked I was. I was excited about getting a lot of fish because of how my brother-in-law talked. I was so excited that I cut a lemon. I could only sigh when I saw the lemon I had cut with joy. A few months later, I went to a nearby small cafe. Don't tell my younger brother, but I need to talk to you about something. The urgent call came from my husband's older brother. His voice sounded urgent. Listen, I need to talk about something important, but I can't tell my parents or brother. He said that over and over again. I was a little nervous, but the chosen cafe was warm and bright, and it was daytime, so I thought everything would be fine. Christina, come over here. He called out loudly as soon as I opened the door. Other people were staring at me, which made me feel bad. So I quickly walked over to his table and looked down. Look at that blush, Christina. You're so cute. My brother-in-law's smile made my cheeks get even redder. Let's have a little more peace and quiet. He waved his hand and said, Okay, when I told him this in a whisper. Then he introduced me to the woman sitting next to him. I said, This is my new girlfriend. A beautiful woman dressed in style stood up and looked at me. A low voice asked, What's this about? Just as I was about to meet her, the next thing I knew, I got hit in the cheek. I was shocked and couldn't figure out what had happened. Someone from the crowd just hit me. Why? The angry woman in front of me yelled, Is this your new girlfriend? She's so annoying, and stormed out of the coffee shop. James, hold on. What kind of joke is this? It hurts a little on my cheek. My throat dried up from being so shocked. Actually, I had a fight with my girlfriend, my brother-in-law said without any thought. I thought about getting a new girlfriend instead of you and stopping our relationship. He laughed and said, Thanks to that, it's all over now. Are you kidding me? This is something I never thought would happen. I began to get annoyed by how carefree he seemed. Well, these things happen, he said with a wave of his hand. It's not a big deal. I've never had anything like this happen before, though. How can I keep my cool? I spoke up. Honestly, I was so angry, shocked, and embarrassed that I couldn't think straight. My brother-in-law then told me, Don't be so mad. It's not important. It shocked everyone. But was it really that shocking? As I looked around, I saw that everyone was looking at me. As I felt the looks of shame on other customers' faces, my cheeks burned. Because I felt bad, I looked down. My brother-in-law saw this as a chance and stood up, smiled, and said, See you later. I said hello to my brother for me, and I left the store. Hold on. Have a few more things to say, I yelled, but he was already out of sight, so he couldn't hear me. A staff member with a worried look on their face stopped me from going after him as soon as I stood up. Excuse me, may I have the check? As they gave me the bill, they said that was really the only thing that came to mind. It's been getting worse between me and my in-laws lately, so I was thinking about staying away from them. In my heart, I felt both powerless and angry because I had so many problems at once. After telling my husband everything, we agreed not to respond to any messages from his brothers. If they needed something, they would have to talk to my husband about it. I then chose to ignore the several texts I got after that. The happiness didn't last long, though, because my in-laws' 60th birthday party was coming up, and I had to go. I've always felt welcome with them, and I loved them as much as I loved my husband's parents. My mother-in-law said, Wow, it's so big. And that separate room over there is so pretty too. Seeing her have fun made me feel better. This house would be great for the party if I could pick it. The in-laws wanted a traditional house that I got from my grandparents not long ago. That house is a classic house that is 230 years old and was moved. When my grandparents lived there, it was always busy. I talked about it with nostalgia. The first time I met my wife, it was also in such a traditional place, my father-in-law said as he thought back. It turned out they met while looking at old homes and having tea together. They found out they were both the same age. In fact, this house was a restaurant before my grandparents moved into a nursing home. My mother-in-law made me feel better by telling me today was special and the place was perfect. She felt bad that she hadn't invited them sooner. Those words made my heart a little warmer. They looked at the house and yard for 2 hours before the party started. During this, the oldest brother came in, making a lot of noise and looking a little unhappy. What is this? We're having lunch in such a quiet place, and Steve is the only one here to greet us. The oldest brother said, "That's surprising." Steve answered with a smile. "This is what Mom and Dad want. They wanted to spend time with their family in a cozy place. This lunch is a special one from a well-known shop in the area." I remembered how excited I had been for that lunch when Steve said that. The second brother spoke up with a worried look on his face and said, "Even if it's a special lunch, it's still lunch. In such a lovely house, shouldn't we have gotten fancier food? Steve, aren't you being too cheap? The rent for the house must have been pretty high. Today was for my in-laws, and I thought we should honor their requests. The first time, I wasn't reimbursed for the taxi price when I was only given a small salmon, nor for the costs at the shop where I got into a fight with his ex-girlfriend. But after that, my oldest and second oldest brothers kept nagging Steve and me and sometimes made jokes about it. Steve kept up his normal calm and gentle attitude through it all. I love that about him a lot." My oldest brother smiled and said, "Hey, I just thought of a good idea." We were having a great time talking. Life has some strange turns sometimes. Steve looked at me with a slightly tense face, as if he felt the same way. After that, the oldest brother whispered something to the second brother. The two of them laughed out loud, their eyes shining. "Are we family?" The oldest child smiled and said, "There's a way to make this special day even more special." At that moment, the oldest brother looked at my husband and asked, "Has this place already closed down?" He said, "Yes, it has," in a soft voice and with a shocked look. Then my excited brothers-in-law came up to us. "Wait a minute, are you implying that you're the one who brings in the money?" The biggest brother yelled, "Yes." And the second brother smiled. "You're so lucky to live in such a beautiful place and have such a big house." "Wait, do you not understand something?" My husband cocked his head in surprise. However, my brothers-in-law went on. "It was the second brother who begged, 'You can't keep this wonderful place all to yourself. Would you share it with us, sir?' asked the oldest with a smile. I got what they were trying to do and had a thought. "What do you need?" I laughed and asked. They looked at me with wide eyes, probably thinking about the things that belonged to our family. I couldn't just do what they said. I didn't receive this house, so it's not my husband's. My husband has always been there for me, especially when it came to my fortune. He told me many times, "If there's a problem, talk to me. Remember to follow the rules of our prenuptial agreement." My brother-in-law's behavior was even worse when I thought about how kind and honest he was. "Isn't this place in the most beautiful spot anywhere? You can get anything you need with just a short walk. Isn't this house a little too big?" The oldest child said, "Maybe we should let our younger brother's family live here," which was a lie. "We don't have to meet anymore if you don't agree." After taking a big breath, I said, "It's okay." They were shocked. "That's it. If so, can our younger brothers live here?" "Yes, of course," said with a smile. "Not just for the second oldest brother, but also for you. I hope everyone likes the house. These are the keys." When I gave them the keys, my brothers-in-law's faces lit up right away. "That's it. We're very thankful." "Yes, Christina. Thank you so much," she said. They walked around the house happily, while my husband asked, "Are you sure about this?" He did so with a slightly raised eyebrow. I grabbed his hand. "Don't be afraid. I've given it a lot of thought." After a few days, Our intercom rang urgently while we were relaxed in the living room. When they opened the door, my in-laws looked scared. Why is this taking place? We didn't know that the house was going to be torn down. They held up a warning to tear down the building. Oh, that was planned, I said in a calm voice. They were shocked and asked, why? I told them, there will be a new apartment building built there. In order to do that, the current house has to be torn down. They were dumbfounded as they looked at me. I also said, the high-end restaurant has been offered to move because it is in such a great spot. While the 60th birthday party was going on, I left it alone, but today is a big day for it. They looked at each other worriedly. Seeing how surprised they were made me feel a little better. Is the house really going to be torn down? Are you sure? I smiled and said, yes, I am. So you might want to get back any important things soon. Everything inside will be thrown away. When they heard this, their eyes got even bigger. I added, given how busy the construction site is, work might start soon. As I looked out the window at the big machines, it's safer to take your valuables now. After a short pause, they quickly began to talk about it, asking, is this real? Are we going to move quickly? As I watched them run off, I looked at my husband. I said, it looks like they really didn't know. My husband smiled and said, I guess my parents and I thought it would be good for them to get a little shock based on what we've learned from the past. But we may have caused the workers trouble. The house keys were given to my in-laws? That's true. I told my husband and his parents the right way to go about telling them about my plans to move into a new house. Of course, I also told them that the house had been bought and gave them information about the date of the handover. They could have told the brothers the truth, but it looks like no one did in the end. Don't stress out about the workers. He told me, I've already talked about it with them. I thought this might happen, so I told the worker ahead of time. We said a few words. I hope he regretted it, and then went to sleep. I couldn't believe it had come to this the next day. When we got to my in-laws' house, my mother-in-law's Mings and my upset brothers-in-law were there to greet us. Even if the contractor didn't let you in, what were you thinking trying to sneak into the house at night? Well, it turns out that they tried to sneak into the house during the day, but were turned away. So they tried to get their valuable things at night. A neighbor thought this was odd and called the cops. Not only did you not get your things back, but you were also stopped by the police. My husband said in shock. Yet, even though the in-law boys were eager to explain, their parents only said, you both should say sorry. My husband gently gave them advice, and they didn't seem like they wanted to say sorry. But the oldest brother replied, what? With a hint of anger. But all of this is because of Christina. The second brother added, I thought you were nice, but I was wrong. I didn't understand why you gave me the keys so quickly, but what you did to the house shocked me. Could only smile when they suddenly complained. Brothers, it looks like we have a misunderstanding. The truth is that I received both the land and the house. We talked about this before I got married to Steve. I've always said what's mine is mine, and we even made a deal about it. So really, it's not your place to step in. A contract? I asked. The in-laws looked shocked, though. I chose to make things clear. There have been many ideas about what to do with the land since my grandparents' time, but they always wanted to keep it the way it is. On the other hand, they told me I could sell it in the future, which I confirmed with a skilled builder. It's not your business, then. But we're family, so why do you think it doesn't matter to us? Before I answered, I thought about a lot of things. About 3 years ago, I really began to think about getting married. Since my mom died soon after giving birth, my dad raised me with a lot of care on his own. Together with my dad, we were like best friends. We went camping in the summer and on ski trips in the winter. Unfortunately, those happy times came to an abrupt end when my father fell and died. Being overloaded, I felt bad that I couldn't do anything to help him and sad that the room was empty where he used to be. At that time, my husband was there for me and supported me through my dad's funeral and the memorial events that followed. Because I couldn't leave the room I shared with my dad, my husband would make me soup and listen to me talk about my dad all night. I want to marry you so badly. You've thought about me and been on my side all along. I told him during my 5th approach, if there's something you don't like about me, I'll fix it. He then looked upset and brave as he told her, I want to marry you, but my family is having problems. I don't want to give them to you. Steve, I told him, I really love you, and I don't care about any problems in your family. We then chose to get married. I have no regrets at all. I wanted to do what my grandparents wanted, and I'm happy that I did. His boys, on the other hand, were a different story. I can't believe how cocky your brothers are. I can no longer forgive them. I made it clear they will pay for everything they've done. Taxi fares, expensive food bills, payment for slapping me, the price of our tea at the cafe, home utilities, the cost of calling the police, and everything else. Steve said. His brothers turned pale. Even for that, that's not possible. Then there was an even bigger surprise. You're rejected, their father told them. What? Dad, please don't. This caused their parents to kick them out of the house. Even cousins who lived a long way away knew about their bad behavior. The brothers' women and families left them because they had lost their place. They now seem to live in peace and quiet in a small room. Is this our new house? Is it really possible to live here without any problems? We moved into a fancy high-rise house next door to Steve's parents. Of course, we agreed to buy this floor in the building before we could give up the land. It's great that we can live close together. Some of my grandparents' old house, like the beams, were used to build our new house. A new picture of our family was taken. Let's put this picture up next to the old ones. The picture showed my family's happy faces. I told myself, from now on, I'll treasure the smiles of this family.
I was very sick before, almost died, but I got better and felt like I got a second chance at life. Now, I want to start fresh, but I don't want to take care of an old lady. I helped my husband recover from being sick by donating something, but he never said thank you. Instead, he gave me a card for a divorce lawyer. It didn't really surprise me because he's been going out a lot since he got better. Now I'm the one who's sick. They say I have stomach cancer, but it's not too bad yet. I need surgery and chemotherapy. I'm really scared, and I can't believe my husband is leaving me like this. All the love and trust I had for him are gone. The toughest part is that he's the only dad our daughter Kate knows. I feel bad for her, but I'm too tired to fix things with him because I have to focus on fighting this disease. A month later, my husband called me a lot, being really aggressive, but I didn't answer. Then he surprised me by coming to my hospital room and telling me something shocking. My name is Christy Young, and I'm a 29-year-old housewife. I've been married to Mike, who's a bit older than me, for 5 years. We have a cute 5-year-old daughter named Kate. I used to work full-time even after we got married, but I quit my job when I took a break to have Kate. I wanted to take it easy and raise her, but because of money problems, I had to start working again when Kate could go to daycare. Luckily, my sister-in-law, Lisa, is the boss at an apparel company, and she hired me. Even though I'm family, I wasn't treated specially at work. The atmosphere was nice, and there were other moms, so it was easy to talk about taking care of kids and taking time off for sudden illnesses. I'm really thankful I got a job in such a good place, but it was really hard to manage work, taking care of the house, and looking after Kate. In the morning, I made breakfast and lunch for my husband, sent him off to work, took Kate to daycare, and then went to my job. After work, I picked up Kate, went shopping, did chores at home, bathed Kate, and made dinner. After I finished making food for Kate, my husband came home, so I cooked dinner for him. Even though my days were busy, my husband didn't help much with house chores or taking care of Kate. Even when Kate was sick in the morning, he didn't seem to care and would still ask for his breakfast. When I needed him to do the grocery shopping because I had to work late, he complained about being tired from work. I was tired too, but I didn't have the energy to argue, so I ended up doing everything on my own. Our lives changed suddenly when my husband was told to get a detailed health check after his company's checkup showed some bad results. He didn't want to get retested because he felt okay, but he started feeling uncomfortable with unexplained bruises and bleeding gums. It would be bad if he ignored it, and it turned out to be a serious illness. We had to think about Kate's future, so I asked him to get a thorough checkup, and it turned out he had leukemia. Why is this happening to us? He was surprised to hear a disease name he knew, but nowadays, leukemia is not a hopeless condition. Many people get better with treatments like chemotherapy and bone marrow transplants. I decided to support my husband, who was feeling really down, and stay with him during the treatment. He took a break from work and went to the hospital right away. Meanwhile, I had to handle my job, take care of the house, look after Kate, and support my husband's treatment. I got worn out before he did. The stress from being in the hospital made him angry at me even more than before. And that was one of the reasons. I knew he was upset about the situation, but honestly, I was tired from working, taking care of Kate, doing chores, and visiting the hospital in my free time. That's when Lisa, my sister-in-law, offered to help. "Why don't you come live with me? I can help with the housework and take care of Kate." She was the boss at a company, and I knew she was always busy with work. She was hands-on and involved in sales, not just giving orders to others. This made it easier for the staff to share their thoughts. I knew she had a lot on her plate. "I really can't trouble you," I said. "You're busy too," Lisa said. "If you get too tired, Kate will suffer the most, right? I'll help Mike as much as I can." "You should lean on those who can help you now," Lisa said firmly, and I couldn't stop my tears. I was worried about Mike, Kate's future, and my own health. Lisa's presence was a huge relief, and her encouraging words comforted me. Mike's parents had already passed away, and Lisa lived alone in her parents' big house. I always thought it was too big for one person. I didn't want to sell it because it holds memories of my parents, but I was glad she invited us to stay there. "You two can come." She warmly welcomed me and Kate. Living with Lisa was really nice. We always got along, and it felt like having a real sister. Lisa, who lived alone for a long time, was good at doing housework. She actively helped, making my life much easier than before. During that time, there was hope for Mike's treatment. I was found to be a good match to donate bone marrow for his transplant. When Mike got diagnosed with leukemia, Lisa and I got tested to be donors. Finding a matching donor is not easy, but the chances are better with siblings. We were sad when we learned that Lisa's marrow wasn't a match, but when we found out that mine could help Mike, he was really happy. I had to stay in the hospital for a few days to give bone marrow. During that time, I had to take a break from work and couldn't take care of Kate. It was tough for Lisa, but she didn't show any annoyance. "Thanks a lot for helping my brother. I'll do everything I can to support you, so don't worry. Just take care of yourself now," Lisa encouraged me. I went through surgery to extract bone marrow for my husband. After the surgery, Mike had to stay in a special room to avoid infections and rest. I left the hospital a few days later, and thanks to Lisa's kindness, I took a few more days off work before going back. The stem cells transplanted into Mike seemed to be working well. After a few weeks, he moved to a regular hospital room. When I brought our daughter Kate to visit Mike, there was a nurse in the room. Mike was happy to see Kate after a long time. "Mr. Young is getting better. He's still young and strong, so if he keeps improving, he might go back to work soon." "Thank you very much, as always," the nurse said with a smile and left. Mike's condition got better, and he was able to leave the hospital a few months later. He still needed to rest at home, but the four of us, including Lisa, started living together in my in-laws' house. I had to stay in the hospital for a few days to give bone marrow. During that time, I had to take a break from work and couldn't take care of Kate. It was tough for Lisa, but she didn't show any annoyance. Thanks a lot for helping my brother. I'll do everything I can to support you, so don't worry. Just take care of yourself now. Lisa encouraged me. I went through surgery to extract bone marrow for my husband. After the surgery, Mike had to stay in a special room to avoid infections and rest. I left the hospital a few days later, and thanks to Lisa's kindness, I took a few more days off work before going back. The stem cells transplanted into Mike seemed to be working well. After a few weeks, he moved to a regular hospital room. When I brought our daughter Kate to visit Mike, there was a nurse in the room. Mike was happy to see Kate after a long time. Mr. Young is getting better. He's still young and strong, so if he keeps improving, he might go back to work soon. Thank you very much, as always, the nurse said with a smile and left. Mike's condition got better, and he was able to leave the hospital a few months later. He still needed to rest at home, but the four of us, including Lisa, started living together in my in-laws' house. Maybe because I'd pushed myself too hard, my health started getting worse. Eating became difficult, and Lisa noticed I might have lost weight. At this point, Mike had almost fully recovered and was back to work. Even though I didn't have to take care of Mike anymore, the chores and looking after Kate didn't decrease. Even when I wasn't feeling well, Mike, who had a lot of energy again, started going out alone more on his days off. He didn't seem to notice I was unwell and didn't offer to help with the chores. When I asked him where he was going and who he was with, he got mad and said, "I have a private life too." Eventually, the stress made my stomach hurt all the time, and Lisa suggested I get a full checkup. Since Mike had been really sick before, I thought it would be good to catch any issues early for Kate's sake. This time, the doctors found out I had stomach cancer. Luckily, it seemed to be slow growing, but I still needed to go to the hospital and have painful chemotherapy. When I suddenly had to go to the hospital, Kate got worried. But her dad was out, so he couldn't comfort her. Instead, Lisa, my sister-in-law, stayed with Kate so I could get ready for the hospital. While I was getting ready, Lisa took Kate out for some shopping. While I was quietly getting ready, my husband Mike came home. "What's happening? Are you going on a trip?" I was upset because he seemed so carefree. "I have stomach cancer. I've been feeling sick, so I went for a checkup today. That's what the doctors found. I need to stay in the hospital. Hospitalized. What about the house? Are you leaving it all to my sister?" I was surprised that his first worry was not about my health. "Well, this is just great, huh? Let's get a divorce." I was confused and shocked by his sudden request. I had always taken care of him when he was sick, and now that I'm the one who's sick, he wants to leave me. I almost died once, but I got better, and it feels like I got a new chance at life. I want to start fresh, and I don't want to take care of an old lady. Even though I helped Mike recover by being his donor, he never said thank you. Instead, he gave me a divorce lawyer's card. "You don't even wear makeup at home. I can't see you as a woman anymore. I'm busy with work, chores, and taking care of Kate. I don't have time for makeup. That's just an excuse. Plus, you have cancer now. I can't handle that." I was surprised by Mike's angry demand to sign divorce papers quickly. I was already worried about the cancer. Despite feeling frustrated and anxious, I wasn't shocked. Since Mike got better, he started going out a lot, and I felt suspicious. With this illness, all my love and trust for him disappeared. What hurt the most was that, for Kate, he was her only dad. I felt bad about making her a child of a single parent, but with the cancer battle ahead, I didn't have the energy to fix things with Mike. Now, we're just like strangers. Mike had a satisfied smile. "Is it done? Don't just barge in like that. You're taking too long." Suddenly, a new young woman showed up at the door. She had bold makeup and a stylish dress. She looked beautiful, but when I looked closely, I recognized her face. "Are you the nurse from Mike's hospital?" It was a bit hard to tell because she wasn't in her uniform, but she was the nurse who took care of my husband. Apparently, she became his girlfriend at some point. Yes, that's me. I took care of him a lot when he was sick. More than you ever did. Mike said proudly. I was shocked by what he said. Taking care of a sick person is what nurses are supposed to do. It felt unfair to be compared to her in that way. Leave this house right now. This is my family's home. Mike said firmly. Yes, it's my husband's family home, but it's now in Lisa's name, my sister-in-law. If I divorce Mike, Lisa, and I will become strangers. It's sad to part with Mike, but it's even sadder to be separated from Lisa, who is kind, reliable, and has a good relationship with my daughter Kate. But there's nothing I can do about it. I packed my suitcase with only the important stuff. Besides getting ready for the hospital, I no longer love my husband, and I want to leave this situation as soon as possible. While I was getting ready quietly, Lisa and Kate, who had gone shopping, came back. We're home. Oh, do we have a visitor? Lisa looked surprised to see a lady she didn't know, and Kate, sticking close to Lisa, seemed confused, so I said clearly, I'm going to break up with Mike. Lisa looked just as surprised as I felt. Then, like she figured something out, she gave Kate some snacks she had just bought and told her to eat them in the other room. With only grown-ups around, Lisa stared at my husband right away. What's going on, Mike? Mike looked a bit scared when Lisa, not me, talked to him. He's leaving me to start a new life with that lady over there. Since you and I won't be family anymore, he wants me to go away. Lisa couldn't believe what I said. Christy is having a hard time and you? How selfish can you be? You're the one who should leave. Never show your face to me again. Lisa scolded Mike, who snorted and left the house. The lady looked down at me, smirked, and followed Mike. After they left, Lisa looked at me with a sorry expression. I felt bad for making her, who did nothing wrong, feel like that. Please don't be upset. You've helped me so much, Lisa, and I can't thank you enough. I felt a bit better knowing Lisa had firmly cut ties with Mike. Even if you break up with Mike, I'll always be on your side, Christy. We left the house we lived in before Mike got sick. Since Lisa told Mike to leave, he had no place to go, but he probably planned to live with that lady. Even with insurance and help, Mike might not have much money left after his serious illness. Well, it's not my concern anymore since we'll be strangers. Even though we weren't married anymore, Lisa was still helping me. I needed to go to the hospital, and I thought about leaving Kate with my parents, but I didn't know what to do about transferring her to a new kindergarten. When Lisa said, I'll take care of her, I know Kate will be worried without her mom, and changing schools will make her even more worried. My job is stable right now. I decided to trust her. About a month after I was in the hospital, when my phone rang. It was my ex-husband, Mike, and of course, I didn't answer. Even though I ignored it many times, Mike kept calling. When I told Lisa, who came to see me, she said she also got calls and ignored them. But he apparently showed up at her in-laws' house. He insisted on seeing me, but she sent him away, saying it was impossible since I was in the hospital. Don't pay attention if he says anything. It's too late for him to realize your worth now. Lisa's words made me feel stronger. After Lisa left, saying she's going home for today, Mike showed up in my hospital room. Why are you here? I didn't tell Mike which hospital I was in. He didn't even ask. I went to my parents' house today. I saw my sister leaving with flowers, so I thought she might be visiting you. Apparently, he followed Lisa. Mike's persistence was scary, and I was confused about what he wanted. Then he hugged me. My illness came back. It turned out Mike's leukemia had returned. Even though remission is possible with a bone marrow transplant, it doesn't guarantee there won't be a recurrence. So, can you be a donor again? I was surprised by his bold request. I was fighting a serious illness, cancer, and my ex-husband who left me came back as soon as he got sick again. It felt too convenient. I don't care. Isn't it your fault? What do you mean? Didn't you have someone who supported you more than I did? Mike looked regretful when he heard me. His girlfriend broke up with him as soon as she found out about his illness. She said she could handle work, but not take care of a sick person in her personal life. You're the only one I can rely on now. Mike begged for my help, but I told him firmly, I really don't want to. Are you going to leave me again when I'm sick? You were the one who left me first, right? Mike didn't know what to say to my response. And I'm talking to a lawyer about you. A lawyer? Oh, right. Child support for Kate. I'll make sure you pay. But I'm sick too. Our argument continued, and a doctor noticed the commotion and came into the room. The doctor stopped Mike, who was trying to grab me, and took him away. Mike was later handed over to the police. After being questioned, a restraining order was issued against him. Lisa came back to my room after hearing the commotion. After learning the details, she was disgusted by Mike's selfishness. I asked Lisa to testify, and after talking to my lawyer, I decided to claim compensation from Mike and his girlfriend. Mike was very hesitant, but his girlfriend agreed to pay immediately, like a severance payment. Since then, I've been slowly getting better. Lisa has been supporting me a lot, and even though Kate is still young, she's been cheering me on without being selfish. The cancer was taken out successfully, and there's no sign it spread. On the other side, Mike is still looking for a donor and seems scared every day. He managed to pay me the compensation by using up his savings, but it looks like he won't be able to afford child support for Kate. Because he can't pay child support, he's not allowed to visit, so he seems to be dealing with his illness by himself. I still have a good relationship with Lisa. After leaving the hospital, I thought I shouldn't bother her anymore, and I was thinking of moving out with Kate. But she got mad at me, saying I shouldn't think about unnecessary things. After recovering from being sick, she told me to spend freely until I saved enough money. I took advantage of her kindness and lived with her for a while, with the three of us. Since Kate really likes Lisa, we eventually decided to rent an apartment nearby. Even after saving enough money, we go back and forth between each other's houses. And now we have a relationship like best friends. I went through a tough breakup with Mike and got sick. But there are still people like Lisa who have been there for me all along. I might make Kate feel lonely, but I hope she grows up to be a strong, kind, and fair woman like Lisa. And I want us to continue getting along well in the future.
My parents are living in this house, so you need to go back to your parents' place, my husband said suddenly. I was taken aback by his words. He seemed to think he was making perfect sense. What now? You got complaints? Don't argue with what I'm saying. I'm totally okay with divorcing you, he asserted. Lately, he'd been cold to me, and I had my own grievances. I had been considering divorce as well, but I didn't think being kicked out of the house was fair. I mean, I'm the one paying the $1,800 for the living expenses. I wondered if he even remembered that. As I stared at him in disbelief, he lost his patience and snapped, "Get out of this house already. If you're here, my parents won't feel comfortable coming." I truly didn't understand why I had to leave, but I said, "All right, I'll take everything I bought with me." Once I agreed, my husband, contented, said, "Get on with it then," and left. I immediately called a resale shop. My name is Emily. I currently live with my husband Robert, who's 5 years my senior. We met when mutual friends introduced us, and we unexpectedly bumped into each other while hanging out with them. This led to us spending a day off together. I'm actually thinking of becoming a voice actor. I'm studying for it now, Robert said. Listening to Robert, I thought his deep voice was indeed impressive. I've always had a soft spot for soothing voices and felt drawn to his. He probably sensed my interests. Soon, we exchanged contact information and suggested hanging out alone. Before we knew it, we started dating. Neither of us explicitly said we should date, but we found ourselves in a relationship. Being young at the time, I thought this must be what adult romance feels like. I had just graduated from college and started working, so maybe I was taken by the idea of dating someone who seemed so mature compared to me. Seeing this, my best friend Ashley expressed concern. "Are you sure about dating someone 5 years older?" I confidently replied, "It's fine. Age gap relationships aren't that uncommon nowadays. I really like Robert and he feels the same about me. There's nothing to worry about." Seeing my conviction, even Ashley, who was initially concerned, said, "Well, if you say so, Emily." Robert and I continued dating for about 3 years, and he eventually brought up marriage. I had mentioned him to my parents, and although they knew he was 5 years older, they were eager to meet him. Given this pressure, I often found myself wondering when he would propose. He proposed to me during one of his usual visits to my apartment, where we just hang out and relax. Normally, I'd expect a proposal to happen in a more romantic setting, but this casual approach felt very much like Robert. I didn't mind it. In response to Robert's proposal, I said, "Sure, let's get married." Perhaps we were both a bit nonchalant about it. After that, we went to visit each other's parents, but to be honest, I didn't really get along with Robert's folks. When we arrived at Robert's family home, the entryway and living room were crammed with what looked like antiques, though I couldn't tell where they were from. From what I could see, they all seemed to be replicas or imitation pieces. As we were ushered into the living room and met Robert's parents, both were dressed in high-end branded clothing and decked out in gaudy jewelry as they greeted me. It felt like I was meeting a stereotypical nouveau riche couple. No matter how I looked at it, our tastes and values seemed too different for us to get along. Robert's mother even remarked, "You look so average, don't you?" comparing her appearance to mine, which was quite rude. I was taken aback that the parents of the man I was thinking of marrying could be like this. But in the end, it's Robert and I who are getting married. If I don't get along with my future in-laws, then I don't really have to interact with them much. So, I decided not to let it bother me too much. After Robert and I got married and moved into our condo to start our life together, Robert came to me looking a bit anxious. "Hey, who was that woman in the blue dress among your guests at the wedding?" "Which woman in a blue dress?" There were several of my guests who wore blue dresses, so just based on that information, I couldn't figure out who he was talking about. "You know, the one who gave a speech as your best friend." "Do you mean Ashley?" "Yes, she was wearing the blue dress." Upon hearing this, Robert muttered, "So it was Ashley." "What's wrong with Ashley?" I asked, noticing he seemed visibly flustered. "Oh, it's nothing major. The other day when I was headed to work, I thought I saw someone who looked like her. That's when I remembered she had given a speech as your best friend at the wedding." I was puzzled at his sudden interest in Ashley and why he was so flustered, but he just chuckled and said, "It's nothing really," and retreated to his room before I could ask anything further. A little while later, I got a call from my best friend Ashley with some news. "Listen, Emily, my boyfriend's coming back to the US next year." Ashley had been dating her boyfriend since high school. They'd known each other since elementary school, but he had moved away middle school. Since then, they had been writing letters to each other. By the time they got to high school, they were reunited, and that's when he confessed to her. I always felt content listening to Ashley's bittersweet love stories. I always enjoyed hearing about her love adventures. Her boyfriend, after working for a few years at his company, got transferred to an international branch and had been away from the US for some time. Despite the distance, their communication never faltered, and they remained a close-knit couple. "Do you think he might propose once he's back, and then you guys will get married?" "Oh, Emily, you're always so quick to jump to conclusions. Just make sure to invite me to the wedding. I promise I'll give a heartwarming speech." "Of course, after that touching speech you gave at your wedding, I'll definitely need you to do the same for mine. Don't set the bar too high." We shared a laugh over our tea. We could talk about anything and everything, completely trusting one another. If one of us had a problem, the other would be there, always ready to offer a shoulder to lean on. It was around this time that I started noticing Robert coming home later and later. "Working late again today?" Yeah? You think I shouldn't work or something?" Even after getting married, Robert held on to his dream of becoming a voice actor. While studying for that career, he couldn't quite see the results and had to work part-time jobs to make ends meet. Yet all the money Robert made from his part-time jobs went straight to his voice acting classes, so I had to cover all our living expenses. That's why we couldn't really save up a shared savings. After a while of being married, I realized Robert wasn't willing to give up on his dream for the sake of our family. I kept wondering if part-timers really had to work so much overtime. Robert's daily late nights added to my worries. "Hey, haven't you been working too much lately? They shouldn't be making you do so much overtime, even if it's just a part-time job." "I told you, I'm fine. More money is always better. Just keep your opinions to yourself." By that time, Robert had stopped calling me by my name and just referred to me as you. When we got married, I genuinely believed he would speak to me more gently and frequently, but after our marriage, I ended up hearing harsh words from him most of the time. The once gentle and deep voice of Robert had turned solely into a harsh one. He seemed to be drinking a lot, and sometimes his voice became raspy. Voice acting depends heavily on a healthy throat, so it worried me that Robert, who wanted to be a voice actor, wasn't taking care of his. But even that seemed to bother him. Slowly, he began to avoid talking to me, and eventually, he would ignore me even when we crossed paths at home. That's when I got a call from Ashley. She said she had something to discuss, so I suggested we meet up since I had my own concerns. We decided to chat in a karaoke booth so that no one could overhear us. Ashley seemed very cautious and had specifically reserved a room where she could see the counter and staff from the door. You specifically chose this room? Yes, I wanted a spot where the staff could see if there was a suspicious person outside our door. A suspicious person? Is that related to what you wanted to discuss? At my words, Ashley nodded. She had felt like someone was following her ever since she left her job about a month ago. Now she even felt followed on her days off. The reason Ashley had chosen a room where the staff could easily see was that she thought the person stalking her might try to eavesdrop on our conversation. Did you talk to the police about it? I tried, but since there's no actual contact, they can't do much. What about your boyfriend? He's coming back in a month. I thought I'd discuss it with him too, but I wanted to talk to you first. Someone close by. I see. Ashley hadn't gotten a good look at her stalker because she was too scared, so she didn't know if it was a man or a woman. So, I decided to stand at a distance and identify the person who was stalking Ashley, and through that, I came to understand who it was. Although I couldn't discuss my rocky relationship with Robert in retrospect, maybe it was for the best, because the one following my best friend Ashley was none other than my husband Robert. He would tell me he had to work overtime daily, but after finishing his shift, he would lurk near Ashley's workplace and tail her when she left. I couldn't believe that the person scaring Ashley was someone so close to me. When I found out, I was beside myself. The look on Robert's face when he was following Ashley was downright creepy. He had this sleazy, unsettling grin. I fell in love and married this man. The instant I saw his face, the love that had lasted for years went cold. I told Ashley the truth and advised her to move immediately. With the help of her coworkers, she managed to have someone drive her close to her new place from the underground company parking lot for a while. After Ashley and I took these measures, Robert became increasingly frustrated, and one day, that frustration exploded. My parents are going to live here, so you should go back to your parents' house, Robert declared suddenly. I was taken aback by his words, yet Robert seemed convinced he was making perfect sense. Got a problem with that, he continued. If you oppose what I'm saying, I'm fine with divorcing you. While I had many grievances with him and even thought that divorce might not be so bad, I did think he could just kick me out of our home. I'm the one paying $1,800 for our monthly expenses. I wonder if Robert even remembers that, I said skeptically. He lost his temper. Just get out already. My parents can't move in if you're still here. Why do I have to leave? I don't get it at all, I replied, but eventually said, fine, I'll take everything I bought with me. Seeing my agreement, Robert said, just hurry up, and walked away. I immediately contacted a local buyback service. The next day, they came to our apartment. At first, Robert smirked, thinking I was moving out. However, when he saw the workers assessing all the furniture and appliances, his eyes widened in shock. After they had finished evaluating everything except what was in Robert's room, a staff member handed me a quote saying, the total value is $22,000. I promptly signed, saying, all right, sell it all. Robert, coming back to his senses, grabbed my arm with concern. Why are you selling everything? My parents are going to live here. How can they with no furniture? I shook off his grip. What are you talking about? When we got married, you said you were broke because you were paying for your acting classes. You begged me to handle the rent, furniture, and living expenses. I never imagined you were that broke. I felt deceived. Remember the $1,800 monthly expenses I've been covering. From now on, you'll pay that. And with your parents moving in, I bet it'll be even more, I declared. Robert went pale, but he quickly tried to regain his composure. Thought you could talk about money and I'd cancel the divorce? Who do you think you are? I've already gotten close to a rich lady, he continued. And then I remembered Robert following Ashley recently, if what he considers close was his stalker behavior. Then Robert seriously diluted. Ashley definitely comes from a wealthy family. Grandfather was a businessman. and now her father has taken over. Ashley truly is the perfect heiress, but she doesn't flaunt it. She spends just like me and our friends, and no one judges her based on her family's wealth. However, Robert seemed to have learned about my best friend Ashley's wealthy background and decided she'd be a better match. Could he possibly think that if two people are the same age, the wealthier one is better? That infuriates me, but Ashley would never marry Robert. Ashley's boyfriend, whom she's been dating since high school, is coming back to the States soon. They'll likely get married, she mentioned, feeling really creeped out because someone was stalking her every day. I remarked upon hearing he wasn't close with Ashley and that she found him creepy. Robert was floored. I always escorted Ashley home, he insisted. You're lucky you weren't reported to the cops, I shot back, but I didn't know about any boyfriend. He's been abroad. She chose me over some unknown guy. They've been pen pals since elementary school and apparently talk almost daily. And unlike you, who's only been working part-time jobs, her boyfriend is a successful man recognized even by her father. Robert looked utterly defeated as I spoke. When the buyback workers had taken all the furniture and appliances, he seemed to recover somewhat. Guess you are all I have. You'll support my dream of becoming a voice actor forever, right? He asked, striking a pose. I gave him a cold look and said, Excuse me, I've already been to the divorce lawyer's office and started the process. Let's communicate through our attorneys from now on. Robert, perhaps thinking I still had feelings for him, clung to my waist. Don't say things like that. How have we been getting along all this time? Getting along? When? Ever since you found out my best friend Ashley is a wealthy heiress, you've been cold to me and started hanging around her. Right after I married you. I realized it was a mistake. Robert started crying like a child, even though he's 5 years older than me. Seeing him cry like that only made my already dwindling affection for him drop even further. At this point, I couldn't stand being in the same room with him. Just cut it out. Oh, by the way, I told your uncle who's letting us rent this apartment about our divorce. My uncle? You know he's strict, right? Well, I've been paying all the rent and living expenses until now. So when I told him you might not be able to afford it if I leave, he said he'd make you work for him. That means I won't be able to continue my voice acting studies. You hardly ever practice anyways. Maybe it's time to face reality. Anyway, if you come near Ashley again, I'll report you to the police immediately. Goodbye. I left the house, determined to never look back. I plan to return to my parents' house for now, but I'm thinking of moving closer to my job if I find a good place. As for Robert, it seems his uncle kept his word and made Robert work at his company. Soon after, Robert's parents, who had been planning to leech off their son after he married the wealthy heiress, also moved into the apartment. They too were taken to work at the uncle's company. Seems like the whole family had a habit of taking advantage of others. I'm just glad I was able to get away from such a toxic family. Age difference doesn't really matter, but I think I need to choose my next partner more carefully. On another note, after things with Robert settled, I received a wedding invitation from Ashley herself. She introduced me to her longtime boyfriend, and I truly wish them all the best. My first marriage didn't work out, but I hope Ashley's marriage will last for many years to come. Mark Thompson, at 50 years old, had poured decades of passion into perfecting his craft at Savory Haven, a culinary gem nestled in the heart of Austin, Texas. Known for its welcoming atmosphere and exquisite dishes, the restaurant had become a beloved institution, drawing food lovers from across the city. Mark's dedication to quality was matched by his head chef, Ethan, a 38-year-old culinary genius with a sharp mind and a keen sense of flavor. Together, Mark and Ethan had built a reputation that set Savory Haven apart from its competitors. However, their success faced a new challenge when a fast food joint named Quick Burger opened nearby, enticing away many loyal customers with cheap, quick meals. Initially dismissing it as a passing trend, Mark soon realized the serious impact on his business as months passed and the decline continued. One evening, after another disappointing night, Mark stayed late at the restaurant, poring over financial records and customer feedback. The numbers painted a grim picture, and loyal patrons were voicing concerns about declining food quality and service. Determined to uncover the cause, Mark began scrutinizing the kitchen's operations more closely. He noticed subtle changes, ingredients being swapped, longer preparation times, and a lack of coordination among the staff. His suspicions deepened until one fateful night when he overheard Ethan in a heated conversation with another staff member. "Just stick to the plan," Ethan said sharply. "Once we're out of here, this place will sink, and I'll be at the new spot with a fresh start." Mark's heart sank as he realized Ethan had been sabotaging Savory Haven to secure a position at a rival eatery. Feeling a mix of betrayal and anger, Mark knew he had to act swiftly. The next day, he confronted Ethan and, despite years of trust and partnership, made the difficult decision to fire him on the spot. Mark's voice trembled with emotion as he confronted Ethan, his trusted chef. "I trusted you, Ethan. How could you do this?" Ethan remained stoic, offering no apologies, just a shrug before he walked out, leaving Mark to confront the aftermath. Despite Ethan's dismissal, the damage was irreparable. Savory Haven's once impeccable reputation lay in ruins, and Mark found himself sinking deeper into debt. Desperate to salvage his dream, Mark reluctantly made the gut-wrenching decision to sell the property. With a heavy heart, he prepared to close Savory Haven for good. As he made his final rounds through the now empty dining room, a profound sense of loss washed over him. This restaurant had been his passion, his life's work, and now it was slipping away. With tears in his eyes, Mark stepped outside to the back alley, where he noticed movement in the shadows. Approaching cautiously, he discovered Sarah and her young daughter, Emily, huddled there in obvious distress. Sarah explained they had been using the alley as a makeshift shelter and relied on the restaurant for food. Now, with Savory Haven closed, they had nowhere else to go. Mark's heart sank as he realized they were homeless. Their plight mirrored his own struggles in a poignant way. Moved by their situation, Mark made a spontaneous decision. "Stay," he told them gently. "You can help me clean up this place in exchange for food and shelter." Sarah hesitated, clutching Emily tightly, overwhelmed by Mark's unexpected generosity. "We don't want to impose," she murmured. "You're not imposing," Mark insisted, his voice soft but resolute. "You and your daughter deserve a safe place to stay, and I could use the help getting this place in order before I'm selling it." Mark's voice trailed off, the weight of his decision still heavy on his mind. Sarah studied him carefully, searching his face for any hint of an ulterior motive, but all she saw was genuine compassion. Slowly she nodded, a tentative smile spreading across her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "This means more to us than you know." And so Sarah and Emily made themselves at home in the quiet, empty restaurant, throwing themselves into the task of cleaning and organizing the space. Mark was amazed at their efficiency and care. Over the next few days, he found himself drawn deeper into their world, discovering a glimmer of hope amidst the ruins of his dream. Mark watched in awe as Sarah and Emily breathed new life into Savory Haven. With Sarah's attention to detail and Emily's infectious energy, the once neglected dining room began to regain its former glory. They cleaned every nook and cranny, organized the kitchen, and polished the silverware. Witnessing their dedication, Mark couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of hope. One evening, after a long day of cleaning, Mark sat down with Sarah to share a simple meal she had prepared. The aroma of the food filled the air, reminiscent of better days. "This is delicious," Mark said warmly, taking a bite. "You're a talented cook, Sarah." Sarah blushed, her smile widening. "Thank you. I used to cook a lot before everything happened." Sarah's voice trailed off, a hint of sadness in her eyes. Mark was curious about her story but didn't want to pry. Instead, he shared a bit of his own. "You know, this place was my dream. I spent years building it up, making it what it was. And then Ethan, he betrayed me," Mark confessed. Sarah looked at him with sympathy. "I'm sorry. Betrayal is a hard thing to overcome," she murmured. "My husband John left us one day. He just walked out, leaving me and Emily with nothing. We lost our home, everything. I've been trying to find steady work ever since, but it's been tough." Mark felt a deep sense of empathy for Sarah. They both knew what it was like to have everything ripped away. "I understand," he said quietly, "but you're strong, and you're doing a great job here. I couldn't have asked for better help." As the days turned into weeks, Mark, Sarah, and Emily formed a close bond. They worked together tirelessly, transforming Savory Haven inch by inch. Mark was continually impressed by Sarah's culinary skills. She had an innate talent for combining flavors and creating mouth-watering dishes. One day, as Mark watched Sarah prepare a meal, he had an idea. "Sarah, how would you feel about becoming the head chef here when we reopen?" he asked earnestly. Sarah was taken aback. Me, a head chef, Mark? I don't know what to say. I've never worked in a professional kitchen before. But you're talented and you care about this place. I think we can bring Savory Haven back to life together, Mark said with conviction. Please think about it. Sarah hesitated, but the hope in her eyes was unmistakable. I'll think about it, Mark. Thank you for believing in me. With renewed purpose, they continued their work. Mark reached out to potential investors, knowing he needed financial backing to fully restore the restaurant and attract customers again. Finally, the day arrived when the prospective investors were scheduled to visit. Mark was a bundle of nerves but also excited. This was their chance to save Savory Haven. As the investors arrived, Mark and Sarah welcomed them warmly. They showcased the newly renovated dining area, highlighting the changes they had made. The investors seemed impressed, but the true test would be Sarah's cooking. Mark watched anxiously as the investors sampled Sarah's dishes. He could see their expressions shift from skepticism to delight. Michael Carter, a well-respected businessman, was particularly enthusiastic. "This food is incredible," he exclaimed. "The flavors, the presentation, everything is top-notch." Just as Mark began to feel optimistic, the door opened, and in walked John, Sarah's ex-husband. He immediately recognized Sarah and Emily, his face contorting with a mixture of shock and rage. "What the hell is going on here?" John bellowed. "Sarah, get over here with Emily right now." Sarah froze, her body going rigid with fear. Emily clung tightly to her mother, eyes wide with terror. Mark quickly stepped in, positioning himself between John and Sarah. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Mark said firmly. "This is my restaurant, and I won't tolerate any kind of abuse or harassment." John sneered. "Oh, I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I'm about to make you an offer you can't refuse. This place is a gold mine, and I want in." Mark felt his blood boil. "I think you're forgetting something," he said through gritted teeth. "This is my restaurant, and I don't take kindly to people who threaten my staff." John laughed harshly. "Your staff? That woman over there is my wife, and that little girl is my daughter. I have every right to be here." Before Mark could respond, Michael Carter stepped forward. "Well, Mr. Thompson," he said calmly, "it seems you have quite a situation on your hands, but I believe in what you're doing here. I'd be honored to invest in Savory Haven on one condition." Mark felt a glimmer of hope. And what would that be? Michael smiled warmly at Sarah and Emily. "I want Sarah and Emily to remain a part of the team. Their contribution to this restaurant is undeniable, and I won't have it any other way." Mark nodded firmly. "Done. Thank you, Mr. Carter. This means the world to us." John's face twisted with anger, but he knew he was defeated. Cursing under his breath, he stormed out of the restaurant, his dreams of exploiting its success crumbling around him. As the investors finalized their agreement with Mark, he felt a surge of relief and gratitude. Savory Haven had a future once more, thanks to the unexpected alliance with Sarah and Emily. With the investment secured, Mark, Sarah, and Emily plunged into the task of fully restoring the restaurant. The transformation was stunning. The dining area was renovated with warm, inviting colors and elegant furnishings that created a cozy yet sophisticated atmosphere. However, the true showpiece was the kitchen, a state-of-the-art facility designed to accommodate Sarah's culinary magic. As they worked together, Mark and Sarah grew closer. Their shared experiences and mutual respect blossomed into a deep friendship. Emily, with her boundless energy and infectious laughter, brought a sense of joy and family to the restaurant. It was a time of hard work but also of healing and renewal for all of them. Mark was continually amazed by Sarah's culinary skills. Her creativity and passion for food were evident in every dish she prepared. One afternoon, as they were finalizing the new menu, Mark turned to Sarah. "You know, Sarah, I've tasted food from some of the best chefs in the world, but nothing compares to your cooking. I'm truly lucky to have you here," Mark said sincerely. Sarah blushed and smiled gratefully. "Thank you, Mark. That means a lot to me. I never imagined I'd have this opportunity again." Mark nodded, a serious look crossing his face. "And I never imagined finding someone who could save this place. We're a team now, and together, I know we can make Savory Haven better than ever." Finally, reopening day arrived, and the restaurant was packed with eager diners. Word had spread about the new and improved Savory Haven, and anticipation filled the air. Mark and Sarah were both nervous and excited, hoping their hard work would pay off. As the evening progressed, it became clear that their efforts had not been in vain. The diners were delighted with the food, praising the flavors and presentation. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, and for the first time in a long while, Mark felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. Amid the bustling activity, Mark couldn't help stealing glances at Sarah. She moved through the kitchen with grace and confidence, directing her team of chefs with precision. The energy in the kitchen was palpable, and the aromas wafting into the dining room made even the most discerning foodie's mouths water. Towards the end of the night, after the last dish had been served and the last patron had left, Mark found Sarah sitting at a table in the now empty dining room. Her eyes shone with a mixture of exhaustion and pride. "Sarah," Mark said softly, sitting down across from her, "I don't know how to thank you for what you've done. This place is alive again, and it's all because of you." Sarah looked up at him, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mark. You gave me a chance when no one else would. You believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself," Sarah said earnestly. Mark reached across the table, gently taking her hands in his. "That's because you're extraordinary, Sarah. From the moment I met you at Emily in that alley, I knew there was something special about you. And now, seeing you in action, leading this kitchen with such passion and skill." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I don't want to lose you, Sarah. Not again." Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she realized the implication of his words. "Mark, what are you saying?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. In response, Mark dropped to one knee, never breaking eye contact with her. "Sarah, will you marry me?" For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Sarah stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never dared to dream that her life could take such an unexpected turn, that the man who had saved her and her daughter from despair would now be offering her his heart. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she nodded, a radiant smile spreading across her face. "Yes," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Mark. I will marry you," Sarah said, her voice filled with joy and relief. Mark let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding and rose to his feet in one fluid motion. He swept Sarah into his arms and twirled her around the empty dining room, their laughter echoing through the space like a joyful symphony that seemed to breathe new life into the very walls of Savory Haven. As they held each other close, Mark knew this moment marked more than just the reopening of his restaurant. It was the start of a new chapter filled with love, hope, and the promise of a future brighter than either of them could have imagined. 3 months later, Savory Haven was thriving. The restaurant's new look, combined with Sarah's exceptional culinary skills, had restored its former glory and more. Word of mouth spread quickly, and soon they had a waiting list of patrons eager to experience the magic of Savory Haven. Mark and Sarah settled into a comfortable routine, balancing the demands of the restaurant with their growing relationship. Emily, now a familiar and beloved presence at Savory Haven, brought joy and laughter to everyone who worked there. The once struggling restaurant had transformed into a bustling, lively place filled with the sounds of happy diners and the delicious aromas of Sarah's cooking. One evening, as the restaurant buzzed with activity, Michael Carter walked in with a group of prominent local business people. Mark greeted him warmly and showed them to a specially reserved table. The excitement in the air was palpable. This visit could lead to even more opportunities for Savory Haven. As Sarah prepared the evening's special menu, Mark couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. He watched her move with confidence and grace, orchestrating her team like a minstrel conducting a symphony. Every dish that left the kitchen was a testament to her skill and dedication. After dinner, Michael approached Mark with a broad smile on his face. "Mark, this place is phenomenal. Sarah's cooking is out of this world. We're all incredibly impressed." Mark beamed. "Thank you, Michael. We've put a lot of hard work into making Savory Haven what it is today." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "I have a proposition for you. We're looking to invest in a few top-tier restaurants to create a new dining experience across the city. We'd like Savory Haven to be the flagship." Mark's eyes widened in surprise. "That's an incredible offer, Michael. I'd need to discuss it with Sarah, of course, but it sounds like a fantastic opportunity." Michael smiled. "Take your time. I'm confident you'll make the right decision." Later that night, after the last patron had left, Mark and Sarah sat down to discuss Michael's offer. Emily had already fallen asleep in a cozy corner of the restaurant, her innocent face a reminder of how far they had come. "Sarah, what do you think about expanding Savory Haven?" Mark asked, excitement and trepidation mingling in his voice. Sarah took a deep breath, considering the possibilities. It's a big step, Mark. But I believe in us and I believe in what we've built here. If we can bring the same passion and quality to other locations, it could be amazing. Mark reached for her hand, his eyes filled with love and determination. I couldn't do this without you, Sarah. You're the heart and soul of Savory Haven. Together, I know we can make this a success. Sarah smiled, her eyes shining with hope and determination. Then let's do it, Mark. Let's take this chance and see where it leads. With their decision made, Mark and Sarah knew they were stepping into a new chapter of their lives. They have faced betrayal and hardship, but together they have found redemption and the promise of new beginnings. Their journey was a testament to the power of resilience, passion, and the transformative power of love. As they looked around the now empty restaurant, they felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. Savory Haven had been more than just a place to eat. It had become a symbol of their shared dream and hard-won success. Hand in hand, Mark and Sarah knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together with Emily by their side, ready to embrace the new adventures that awaited them.